Okay.
So, all right.
All right, so hello, my name is Alex Godbout. And as already mentioned, it's been about a year since I last presented, and a lot has happened in a year, in particular, learning. In fact, so much learning that my entire business plan is simply a collection of lessons, and I'd like to share those lessons with you now. So lesson number 1, build tech around a problem. About 2 years ago, a teacher came to us, a Davis High School teacher. Her name was Anne, and she said that she has a problem. In particular, she has these large spectrophotometers. They're about this big, they're very heavy, and they also don't work. So she came to us to build a replacement for those large, expensive spectrophotometers, and that's exactly what we did. It turns out Anne isn't the only one suffering from this type of problem. Teachers all across California are trying to meet standards called the Next Generation Science Standards. And what this does is this mandates that teachers have to teach hands-on learning. And by 2020, there's going to be tests, 2-hour tests distributed throughout the state to test Next Generation Science Standards. There's a huge demand for teaching hands-on science right now. A good way to teach hands-on science is something you get your hands on. And what we did is we developed equipment, science equipment, that's affordable. In particular, it can do 4 different things. It can function as a colorimeter, which is useful for knowing the concentration of things in a solution. For example, if I take some water from, say, purified water, and I take dirtier water, maybe from Davis, I can actually tell the concentration of substances in the water through a colorimeter. The spectrophotometer will tell you what's inside a solution. So say I take the dirty Davis water and I want to know what's inside it, a spectrophotometer will let you know what's inside it. A fluorimeter will tell you how much fluorescence is in a solution, and a microscope is self-explanatory. And we took those 4 things and combined them into one, and it looks like this. We've talked to at least 20 to 30 teachers. We wanted to know what they wanted, and they want something accessible, multifunctional, affordable, easy to use, so we made sure we did all that stuff. Okay, so we took a problem and we built a product around the problem. Now we have a product. Now this takes us to our second lesson. What do you do once you have a product? It turns out you apply to everything, to as many things as you can. We applied to the ASUCD Student E-Team competition, and thanks to that, it turns out when you apply to a competition, they tell you what to do, and if you don't know what to do, simply meeting the requirements of a competition will give you a lot of direction. So by applying to the E-Team, the E-Team ASUCD competition, we did a lot of competitive analysis to find out how our device stacks up against everything else. After that, we applied to the Big Bang competition. Now, I have a background in engineering. I don't know how to build financial models. By participating in the Big Bang competition, even if I didn't win the $5,000 afterwards, I nevertheless learned how to build financial models. So it's always useful to apply to everything. By the way, we won first place at the ASUCD, second place at the Big Bang competition, and then we got a big grant from VentureWell to continue this idea. And again, a lot of learning happened just by applying. For VentureWell, they want you to do a lot of market research, so simply by meeting the requirements of the grant, we're already learning a lot about what market we should pursue in education. Okay, and finally for the third and most important lesson, the lesson that, had I known, would have saved me a ton of stress, is get the legal stuff right. There is a reason why I'm here without our current prototype. Our current prototype is beautiful, by the way, but I didn't bring it because we don't have a provisional patent for it yet. It would have been a public disclosure had I brought it. So currently I'll just show you what we had last time I presented at 1 Million Cups, which was a wooden sort of device that you see there. Provisional patents are useful. As we talked to a lot of people, they kept pushing us towards utility patents, but there's so many other different options. Provisional patents are good for a year, and it's not very expensive as well. You can also get design patents, which are less stringent than utility patents. These are all steps you can take if you're not ready to make the big leap of spending thousands and thousands of dollars for a utility patent. Okay, now secondly, is incorporate. Incorporate as soon as you can. When we started this idea, we had a team of about 6 people plus. It can be very hard to work on a large team like that. it can be very hard to know what everyone's roles are, to keep track of what everyone is doing, to keep track of the decision power each person has. By incorporating, you're forced to answer those questions on who exactly is going to spend the most amount of time and what results are they, what are they going to get from spending that much time. So if you're not ready for a C Corp quite yet, maybe just do an LLC. That way at least you have some structure, something that will help with the team dynamics moving forward. All right, so that is my presentation.
So I really enjoyed your presentation. It's a little bit different than some of the presentations we have because this was an encore one. But didn't you do a great job of explaining how they got to the point they are and lessons for everyone? I think we need another one. So Alex, for where you're at now, how can this community help you?
Yeah, so add me on LinkedIn if you want to. And maybe get a cup of coffee with me one day. So to set up a follow-up meeting, and that'd be really nice.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up to general questions. I think there might be more questions about where you guys are at now and going forward, that sort of thing. So who would like to ask the first question?
Mine's not a question, just an appreciation for like just a showing of growth over a year. We talk about exponential growth of a startup as like, or of a company as like the steep part at the end. At the beginning, exponential growth is fairly flat. But to celebrate the growth on the way to where you're going is huge. I just want to thank you.
Yeah, a lot of people say go for moonshots, but another way to say it is just shoot something. And that could mean provisional patents and LLCs and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a compliment as well. I really loved that you started with a story that was able to tie in the problem. I think that really grabbed my attention.
Thank you.
Overall, your presentation was fantastic, so good job. I want to know where you guys are right now and what you see your next steps are.
Right. So we have a one-year plan
Ignore
of
that.
by around this time next year, we would have had some sales, solid sales. To get to that point, there's engineering. So our current prototype we're testing out. We actually just did a few beta tests at the Davis High School yesterday. And we're doing it today, so we're getting data on that. And then there's the marketing part, or the business part, and that could be looking at different distribution channels. There's a really good idea of working with publishers of tech lessons and curriculum. So if we do those two things, we can probably get some sales by next year. Yeah.
Great presentation. Have you guys looked at like domestic use? Because like when I drink water out of the tap, sometimes I'm curious. I don't mind spending that much money. Drinkable, and don't trip on the wire like this.
Yeah, first of all, we were all in on education because our problem came from education. Then we took a step back and said, what other markets can we consider? We've talked to people who work in water purity and whatnot. We've talked to breweries and those sorts of uses. I think the conclusion was if we entered those markets, we'll be competing against $1,000 machines that work really, really well. To enter that market, you'd have to work really, really well. So I think right now we're collecting data in ed tech to see if it works really, really well. If so, then we might just branch over to domestic. And maybe even medical if we work really, really, really well.
So right now yours is a teaching tool.
Currently it's a teaching tool.
Okay.
So if I remember correctly from the original one, you have a stand and then you use a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have software and some kind of optics or something?
Yeah, so our IP are as follows. Our optical path is very specific in a way that you can configure fluorimetry, spectrophotometry, and colorimetry all in one. So we have that piece of hardware. We also have a web app, which is actually pretty critical, especially if you're working with so many different types of smartphones out there. And each one has a different way of taking a picture. So the software accounts for all that. And it's a web app anyone can visit. Even now, if you go to chromatiscope.com, it's very ugly. It's more for functionality, but it does its job of, yeah. So those are the two things we have.
So your provisional patent combined as both what you're doing in the software and the hardware.
Yeah, yeah,
And you don't supply the phone, that's something they would supply themselves.
correct, yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to hog everybody's time, but I'm just curious, how good are you with accuracy and precision as far as just like a ballpark thing? Right,
Yes.
we're like as accurate, like we can detect 5 things out of 15.
Okay, so let's see, a good way to say this. So one way to talk about accuracy is how does it compare to current benchmarks. And about this time last year, we did a benchmark test against what's called the TCAN machine, which is used at UC Davis lab. And it was pretty good. The R-squares were all above 90, and it's pretty good. But we're doing beta tests now, and we're seeing that that's not always the case. So as for accuracy now, I guess we'll find out, because we'll do the test and we'll see what it is now. But I'm not going to, I think it could be improved. That's why we're sticking with education now. Yeah.
How many beta tests do you have currently right now? You mentioned one yesterday at
Okay.
Davis High School.
Right, so the first beta test we had was with an AP chemistry class about a couple months ago. That was around 30 students using, I think, 8 devices, and that was with the wooden devices, so we did that. Since then, we've changed our hardware. So we're doing another beta test yesterday, and we have another one today with the new hardware. So I guess altogether that makes 3.
Okay. And then you're at, your software is at a functionality perspective right now?
I think if anything, the software has the longest way to go. There's so many different, it can be functional in very, very specific scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're trying to get is robustness, and the only way to get that is to get more data from all these different types of phones, hence the beta tests today and yesterday.
Got it, okay. You can actually just specifically target top 2 or 3 models, right? Samsung, Apple.
Yeah,
But that's, right, everything else, phase 2?
yeah.
But then the other question was, as you get the functionality nailed, do you have plans to incorporate some of the usability testing, user experience? So students actually using your applications so they can respond to feedback, right? Just make it really simple.
Okay, so
That's a user testing.
user testing to get user-specific feedback.
Usability testing. Yeah.
Okay, that isn't necessarily specific to accuracy and precision.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with it. That's why I said you're going to focus on your functionality first, then your usability.
Right. So, as part of being part of this Ventural grant, we have to get like 30 interviews from customers.
Perfect.
So, we will get usability information through those interviews, and simultaneously we're asking the students what they think about the hardware and usability and whatnot. So,
Okay, good.
I have 2 questions kind of related to marketing or feedback. Have you guys, in your market testing, have you guys come up with what you think is the price you're going to need to sell this product at in order for schools to use it?
yeah, so I think let's see, where we are now is the price that I presented last time, but even cheaper.
And
So
what was it last time?
last time it was like $30, I think. It was definitely, it was around $20 to manufacture. So cogs were 20 or so dollars. It's now much lower. Not much lower, it's now lower. So we'll probably sell it for $40 to $70, anywhere from around there. In addition to that, we'll probably sell this other thing that doesn't necessitate the need for Wi-Fi access or internet access. It's a self-hosting server, and that would cost around $40 or so. So I think that's where we are in terms of pricing.
And then kind of a sales and marketing idea. I would imagine that there are some grants and things like that out there for schools to take advantage of as far as STEM education and that sort of thing goes.
Yeah.
That you might be able to sell it to them, quote, for free by letting them, know about the grants, how to fill out the paperwork, that sort of thing. Kind of like, I know in the solar industry, they really push like the rebates, like, here's your cost, after rebate. But you might actually if someone on your team got familiar with what grants are available to schools, then you might be able to get all your money. It's free to the school, but you pay you the money to get them the grant.
Right. I mean, something we hear over and over again is teachers don't have any money,
Right.
which is true. But corporations do, and they're giving grants out to teachers. So, yeah.
So, from when I used to go to school, I remember one of the coolest things was when they had like a microscope relay to show up on a big screen. So maybe as you build out the technology, that might be something you think about having a relay, whether it be for e-learning or just so that the teacher could have one of your products and be able to show that to her classroom and to students.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Do you have, sorry, go ahead. Do you have an example of some of the conditions that affect the accuracy of measurements?
Yeah, so there's this thing called gamma correction that is different between at least the iPhone and the Android. And what that means is how it changes, you know, when you tap the iPhone, the brightness changes and all that, that's gamma correction. So that is a function of what the user does, you know, when taking the picture. If the user somehow taps on the light spot in the picture, it's going to do a different gamma correction than if he tapped on the dark spot, or she tapped on the dark spot. So that's one variable that we need to take into account, and that's why we designed it with this sort of a reference sample. So there's gamma correction, there's the form factor of the phones, where the camera's placed. It can be hard to align everything, and that alignment might cause issues. Zoom, and those are the big things, I think. There's probably more.
On the topic of market pricing, as someone very unfamiliar with the educational space, is there enough money to support you?
A lot of people have been saying there isn't. And even if there is money, we're going to get it very slowly. And I think those things are true. But I also know, as Laura mentioned, that there are big grants. I do know personally that ed tech companies can get purchase orders of thousands of dollars. Albeit they come in sporadically, but yeah. So I guess, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so engineer salary is $100,000.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
a lot of big orders.
So I think that's why we're starting off as an LLC, and that's why we're starting off part-time. For me, this isn't so much the money that's driving this, it's the feeling, at least for me, that I get when a student uses it and he says, wow, it's really, really cool, or she says it's really, really cool. So I guess it's more goodwill that's driving this forward more than anything.
Yeah.
So
Definitely, and I don't want to critique that at all, just from if people are looking to get money back,
yeah.
or investors are looking to get their money back, that might be a challenge of yours.
Right. And we hope that in the next year, as we make sales, a path forward for investment will be found so that we can upgrade from LLC to a C Corp. But if not, it'll continue as a, yeah. So we're looking for that path. And we've, I think, yet to find a very clear path.
So it's a web app right now?
Yeah.
And have you thought about developing it as a mobile app? And does it need to go to the web to like figure things out? Is there too much stuff that it needs to go through for it all to reside on the phone itself? If that makes sense.
Yeah, so if we wanted to, we could make a native app. The only reason why we haven't is the time it takes to do that.
So if you had a native app, would you still need the device that gives you, that replaces Wi-Fi or whatever? You said some classrooms don't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, if we did, we wouldn't need that device. Yeah.
Yeah, so the application, you're taking a picture and you're sending the picture to the web app, and the web app is doing all the sort of analysis on it, right? And then that's producing the result. Okay. So did you guys develop your own library or your own sort of process to and that's what sort of the core technology is your own software that analyzes that photograph?
Yeah. The big challenge is, so you have a picture and the pictures we get look like two dots. What do you do with that picture and how do you get reliable data from that? So what we're developing, what we have so far is, a set of equations and processes for extracting the data from that. That's the core technology. And then we're even considering some AI to throw in there to actually identify location of those dots and boundaries and whatnot. Yeah.
So you thought about, because there's definitely educational components of this. But
Yeah.
to the point of, I'm curious about what's in my water, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There might be like interesting, fun applications for this that you guys might not even know about. If you're producing that data anyway, it might be interesting to create an API that allows software developers to say, hey, now you've got this new tool available for iOS and Android, or any camera, frankly, because it's just an image that's being identified.
Yeah.
And then you really cool stuff can get built on top of your work. That's an interesting business model.
Yeah, that is interesting. We're trying to figure out how much we can actually claim software as IP. It's still figuring that out. But if it turns out that it should be open source, then it'll be open source, and it could lead to a lot of different interesting applications.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Well, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
All right.